Welcome into the NASCAR Betting Preview Show as we get set for a fantastic race at Talladega Superspeedway, where we predict the unpredictable and make some money in the process. It is the NASCAR playoffs as well. So much action to talk about. Best bets, prop plays, data analysis, and much more. Stick around, and it is the time for the NASCAR Betting Preview Show. We are live now for the NASCAR Betting Preview Show. Thank you everyone for tuning in now. And we got some fresh, familiar, but special to have on the show faces for this one here. Greg joining us for from Win the Race. Eric joining us from the Hot Pass podcast. Guys, thanks so much for coming into the show now and stepping up. Phil's traveling, so shout out to Phil. Wish you could be here full tank with Phil. And Ryan feeling a little bit under the weather as well. But we got next man up mentality here on the show. First up, Greg, how you doing? How you been? And how excited are you for Talladega this weekend?
Love plate tracks, drafting. I know a lot of bettors kind of get spooked off by them. I love them. I enjoy it a lot. There's some unpredictability, there's some chaos to it, but I always have a great time with it. They've been good to me over the few years, so I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome. Now, Eric, I mean, I know you're bringing the heat from the Hot Pass podcast, and this one, always the great vibes and energy. How excited are you for Talladega? But before that, you're wearing the Detroit Tigers hat there. Tell us a little bit how your day is going thus far, as I hope it's been pretty great with them winning that playoff series.
Well, I feel fantastic when I bet on the Houston Astros pitcher to get a bunch of strikeouts. So we're just swinging and golfing. And then we go and win the game at the end. So I'm having a good time. It's been a good week. We've made a lot of money the last couple of weeks. And the last time I had a terrible weekend was at Atlanta. And Chris Wormy has given me all this advice about don't bet on it. And then I get invited to come on here. So it looks like I've been coerced to bet on this race. So very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, things can change, things can turn around at each and every super speedway race we go to. So I'm excited to see that happen for you in this one. Now, we got to hit up the chat, see who's in, see who's going on, see what's happening. Kush is first this week. Appreciate you, Kush. Thanks for hopping in. Said he loves watching Dega, hates to bet on it. Hey, I could feel that, but hopefully this week we can change that last bar for you. We want to love betting on it because we'll be winning from this point on. Brian in the chat saying Jordan's still the GOAT. Greg and Hot Pass, let's go. Brian also saying he saw Monster Beast, Eric, Peach, let's go. There it is. Nice, very nice. And small darts this week, gents. Yeah, we got some small ones. Maybe we got some big ones too. We will break it down for you guys. Continue to comment below in the chat. Appreciate everyone hopping in and talking some NASCAR betting for this one here today. And as we do so, we got to start with the race recap from last week, how everything went down in Kansas. And to me, I was surprised, honestly. When we go to Kansas, I think of the Toyotas being dominant. I think of the playoff drivers stepping up. And realistically, when we see Ross Chastain winning it, Kyle Busch also in contention to do so. Willie B was fast. Blaney up there too. But really, the guys like Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, even Bubba Wallace as 2311 has dominated that racetrack in recent years, did not show up in that one. Hurt my betting card because of that. Greg, how did you guys do over at Win the Race? And were you surprised how things unfolded there at Kansas last weekend?
Yeah, we didn't have a great week if we're just, being perfectly honest. We had some bullets in our chamber that we thought were pretty good. We had Bell who had opened for reasons beyond my comprehension at 850 over at Caesars right after taking the pole. Then we also had him on top Toyota. So we had some, I guess, bad luck, bad kind of deals. We had Austin Cindric at plus 160 over Daniel Saurez, which was a lock in stage one, and then kind of fell apart. So yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those races that was just kind of a little bit of a bad luck race, right? If we look at what we saw in that race, I think we can, say, hey, the cars we thought were going to be fast were fast until they had mechanical issues, right? Like, it wasn't a question of speed. It was a question of, mechanical issues or damage that, kind of took out the cars. And then, like you said, seeing Ross and, Kyle Busch up there, they didn't have the speed until they were on the right strategy. So it was kind of weird that we had almost a strategy race where, that stage two, that late caution allowed some people to flip the stage. And like, you almost had a road course vibe to it where all of a sudden, you could kind of flip the stage and get yourself some track position, and it worked out well for them. So not a great weekend for us. Interesting race. I don't know that it's certainly not been one of my favorite races because of kind of the wonkiness.
Yeah, and I think that, to me, especially after the Kansas race we had in the spring, obviously photo finish and everything like that, closest finish in NASCAR history, one of the greatest things to watch. But to me, I felt like that course of the entire race, it just kept getting better and better, ultimately to the major buildup like we saw in the photo finish. And then I was like, okay, we're back at Kansas. Great race to bet on, great race to watch. And like you said, it got a little wonky there at the end. Eric, how about you there for the hot pass and everything like that? How did Kansas fare for you there?
Well, it didn't. I mean, this is the first losing weekend in a couple weekends in the Cup Series. Did fantastic in the trucks, amazing in Xfinity. NASCAR Betting Preview Show. I do the Xfinity show. So we hit about 17 units. But the Cup Series, like, I had Kyle Busch, all right? Like, I tell everybody, I go, hey, he is going to hurt us. He will hurt us. We expect to hurt. But I didn't expect that fucking guy to be in the lead. And then, run out of talent. And I'm very upset about it. I think I was very flushed in the face. I was very mad. But overall, like, I think I totally agree with everybody in the chat and everything about, like, I feel like if you were out front, you weren't getting to the next guy. It really turned into, what the lead pack, like whoever's in the front has got clean air, kind of like a Bristol. You ain't catching the guy. And it really, I hope that we don't get another race like that. I think it's same back-to-back weekends where we're expecting to have a race like the spring, and then all of a sudden we come back and it's not what we expected. So if anybody came out positive, congratulations, because I did not. But there's nothing better than hitting on a truck in Xfinity and walking into Sunday, we're good. So the Hot Pass podcast thrived in the last couple of weeks. So, but the Cup Series, and I'm a Ross Chastain fan as well, so it hurts me to not have a ticket on him, but because I thought he was dog crap. So, but here we are.
All right. Hey, for the fandom, glad it worked out for you there. And also be sure to tune in to the Xfinity Pod for the NASCAR Betting Preview Show. As he alluded to, great work there always. And it's always good when we can win early in the weekend to then transfer it over and double down on Sundays. Shout out to the chat here. Miami Mike saying, don't like how many non-playoff drivers are winning races, but that's the beauty of it. And honestly, I can agree. I mean, being at Watkins Glen, seeing how that race unfolded in terms of them just going hard for points. And then last week, sort of the same thing happened at Kansas in terms of them flipping the script and jumping ahead of those guys that look to get more points earlier on in the round. So definitely agree there. Brian also saying, if you had Bell, Blaney, and Byron, you should have cashed. I definitely agree. As someone who had Bell and Byron, that one hurt me because it just didn't end up happening there too. Big Ross saying my Reddick fade made him profitable. Surprising and definitely worth it there. So great shout out there to Big Ross, because that is something that takes guts to do, especially at a track like Kansas, and it worked out. Now, I think moving forward here to the playoff picture, something I want to talk about with you guys now is going to be the drivers who you think need to have a strong run this weekend at Talladega, need to be aggressive in this race. Taking a look at the current playoff standings, Tyler Reddick, -4 from the cut line, He won at Talladega earlier this season. Then we see Daniel Saurez -14, Chase Briscoe -25, Austin Cindric -29. But it's not just those guys. We see Joey Logano +4, Chase Elliott +4, Alex Bowman +8, and he's been one of those. And all three of those drivers have been some of the most consistent throughout the entire NASCAR playoffs. It could be a driver at the top, William Byron, who's currently leading at +34 to the good, or all the way at the bottom in 12th in Austin Cindric. Greg, if you had to choose one driver out of the entire playoff standings right now, who you think needs to be aggressive and will come out strong because of that at Talladega, who would you pick in this one?
Well, needs to be aggressive and come out strong. I mean, I suppose if I say needs to be aggressive and come out strong, Cindric's the guy who comes to mind, right? As you know, I've got him very, very highly rated. So, you know, he's in a spot where he needs to come out strong, and I think he can. You know, I don't think he's perhaps the one who needs to do it most, because I think, you know, he's got a little bit of road course ability, so he could, you know, kind of show up next week too. So he might not be the most, but I think he's the most likely to be aggressive and be successful at it.
Okay, good to know. Eric, how about you for this one? Any drivers that's come out in your mind when we're going super speedway racing and looking at the current playoff picture? Is this a race that they can capitalize on and advance the next round, or at least have a good points day?
Well, I don't want to talk about anybody positive. All right. I want to talk about guys like Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin need to have a good day. Do we think they're going to have a good day? Well, I love when Dale Earnhardt spits out the statistic of, like, when you're over the age of 40, good luck winning at super speedways, because nobody's done it since God knows when, you know. So before I was even born, probably. I was born in the 90s, so it was before that. But I sit there and look at Denny and go, are you going to hang out in the back? Because everybody was harping on your ass, and seems like he cannot finish at super speedways ever since he turned 40 and he won his last Daytona race. Kyle Larson, absolutely abysmal. So, and I'm a Larson hater, but I did win at Bristol, so I'm a little bit of a lover now. You got something to say over there, Greg?
I got some Larson stats for you.
I know he runs so well.
He has bad finishes, but he runs so well here in the Gen 7.
If he's not winning, he's wrecking.
Give me a Zane Smith and Kyle Larson head to head, and I will bet Zane Smith at the hot streak he's got. All right, give me plus money, like plus 1,000. I'm sure it would, because everybody would be sucking off Larson, and I'd be like, give me $100 on Zane. Because I know Ryan. All right. Ryan's gonna be hating me right now because he hates Zane Smith. He's like, let's go to the top 10 on super speedways. But I'll just finish my thought. I know Larson runs well. I know Denny Hamlin can run well. It's a matter of you can finish well. I think they need to just ride around. Like, Larson's very aggressive early on in the stages, so I think he'll just be fine. Denny really, really scares me. I also do have money on him not to make the out of the round of 8. So at like plus 850. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think guys like Cindric, I totally agree. You did take my thought on Cindric though, because I think Cindric is good. I think he's going to be aggressive, and I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with the Larson take too, because he is the driver that is aggressive at these tracks. He's always leading, and then it always seems like whenever you take your glance away or you get distracted, you look up and he's wrecked. So, but he has been strong in terms of getting to the front at these types of tracks. It's about finishing the race though. And Denny Hamlin is another one where I expect him to go all out in this race because of how they didn't do that at Atlanta. He just rode around in the back, and that's something we normally didn't see out of the 11 car. And then he talked about it being a strategy play for points and everything like that. But I think the fact that didn't work, and he can control his own destiny potentially here, and he is such a good super speedway racer. I know he hasn't had the finishes, and it's been a long time with him in terms of getting a win at a super speedway race. But I feel like if he's going to turn it on and make the push to beat your bet and get out of the round of 8, it's got to start now.
Just wait. John Hunter Nemechek will come pushing into a turn and wreck all the Toyotas again.
Yeah.
And then everybody will blame Bubba on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
if you want your Larson hate, right? Okay, here's your spot to hate Larson. All right. So 11 starts in the Gen 7, one top 10 finish. There's only one driver in the series who has a bigger gap in between his average running position and his average finishing position than Larson. All right. So Larson's average running position is 13.29. His average finish is 21.64. Okay. So he finishes way behind where he runs. The only person in the series who has a bigger gap is Harrison Burton.
Wow.
Who has an average running position of 17.15 and an average finish of 27.27.
And who won on a super speedway?
And who won on
Burton. Boom. Boom.
And so Burton's is also a lot worse. So, you know, that gap for Larson is 8.34. That gap for Burton is 10.12. Larson surrounded a couple other guys. Ryan Preece only has 7 races, but, you know, kind of in that same camp. Ironically, Joey Logano is kind of in that camp too, with a good average running position, not such great finishes. But again, it's way more mild. His difference is 6.86. So, you know, a lot closer than, you know, Larson's. Larson is, he does not finish where he has run for sure.
Okay, all right. I love the fact that we have these stats to back up the talk and the banter and everything in between, and just the facts. Like Kyle Larson, and that ratio is insane to me. And the fact that the only driver that compares is Harrison Burton makes it even crazier. I think now we can move to some rapid fire questions as we get closer into going over some of our best bets and plays for this weekend. I think one thing that I've been thinking about is the fact that how Ryan Blaney won this race last season, but going into it, he was 30-1 to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship. And for people that saw that number, I was one of them, was like, wow, that's a great number for Blaney, who could go out and win. And then he went on to do so. Greg, I want to start with you here for this one. Is there a driver that presents that type of value for you here? Maybe they don't have to win this race specifically, but similar to Blaney last year where you saw it 30-1. I look at the board over here for Cup championship odds. I see, you know, Suarez 80-1, Briscoe 80-1, obviously there. Even Bowman's a nice 20-1. Any of those potential guys that present the value to do a similar run like Blaney had last year?
Oh, I'll tell you, I have not looked at championship odds in a while. So it's not been a market that anytime I've looked at has been an attractive one to me. Like the odds have been absolute, just terrible.
Yeah.
Bowman's an interesting one for sure. I've got a preseason on him at 40-1. It was a free bet, so I don't know that it was necessarily value, but it was kind of an interesting one to me to kind of toss out there. Briscoe at 80 is interesting because Stuart Haas seems to show up at the short flat tracks, and obviously he's won at Phoenix before. He's going to have a really hard time getting out of this. Really hard time getting out of this round, though. If he gets out of this round, I think he could be all right. He could be a threat if he makes it to the next round, but this is not a great track for him. The Roval is not a great track for him. So, you know, I think he would probably have to win one of those because I don't see him putting together 2 consistent races.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, 80 would be an interesting number, but I don't know that I could even get there because I have so little faith in his ability to get out of this round.
Mm-hmm. All right, hey, good to know there. And I think that's the same thing I was thinking in terms of the playoff. I mean, the championship odds too, where I feel like at least last season specifically, I mentioned the Blaney there with the major value, but these drivers that I'm looking at on the board, Cindric could be 65-1 in the sense of winning at Talladega. That would be a, you know, great way to help us get that value. But and then Brian saying the same thing in the chat too, saying Cindric 60-1 on Caesars is interesting. Gonna run it up well this weekend. Good history at road courses in the past. If he gets to Phoenix, Penske is back-to-back champs. Yeah, back-to-back. So I like that from Brian there too.
Yeah, look, so just quickly pulled it up. It took a while. Logano at 13 might be the most interesting of them. Right? Because it's that Penske thing. Again, he's got to do really well this week, right? If he does well this week, Penske ran really well at Kansas last week, so maybe they've kind of found that intermediate speed, and he could put something together at Vegas in 2 weeks. Again, he's got to get out of this round, but if he gets out of this round, I think he could be an interesting one.
Okay, like it there. Eric, to you, rapid fire question is going to be, do you expect this race to be similar to the one we saw in the spring, where it was just fuel mileage the whole way, didn't see a lot of passing? I know last year's Talladega race at this time in the fall was exciting. We saw, battles and lead changes and drivers going for a position there. How do you think this race will play out? And bonus point for you two, playoff driver wins. What do you think?
I'm loving the odds on non-playoff drivers because they're just so inflated because they just love sucking off like Ryan Blaney and all these guys, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, so on and so forth. But I really hope that it is not a fuel saving race. I've been to the last 2 spring Talladega races and it was an absolute snooze fest. I hope I don't really have too much of a take other than, I hope it was like the Daytona summer race. I hope it was like Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta was a little bit, I think the track is changing in Atlanta, but Talladega, you got plenty of room. It's a way wider track. Let's have some fun. I want to see 4 wide. Even give me a little, if we can squeeze them in, let's make it 5. Make me sweat with the money I didn't want to bet. Because look at me, I'm rhyming. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't even know it.
Yeah. Oh wow. Look at that. We're like 5 again. Look at us. Greg was like 5 in like 1975. We love Greg.
89. Come on.
But yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. I think a lot of guys that are playoff drivers are going to be battling up front. I think in a race like this, if we're going to talk about betting lines, is getting those Penske stage winner bets as well, because they're going to be fighting for all sorts of points. But later on in the race, no matter what, we already know stage 3 is going to be absolute freaking chaos. If the rest of the race was boring, I'm sure stage 3 will make up all that time and have a couple of naps in the beginning of the race. And please do not cut to commercial during any part of the race, please. Because in Canada, they give you down there. I heard they were giving you guys side-by-sides. In Canada, we're going full screen. So I'm still missing a lot of wrecks. All right, we need to have a chat. And shouts out to NASCAR for going to Mexico and not Canada. We appreciate it up here. And ends my take. I'm heated.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're the Hot Pass podcast, because you're heated.
Yeah. Well, Chris Wormy would say the Hot Ass podcast or the Hot Guy podcast, but we take it all. Or the thrift shop, but the thrift shop has been finding all the little nuggets at the thrift shop. All right. Shouts out to the Hot Pass podcast.
For sure. Brian in the chat saying 9 of the last 10 Talladega winners were playoff drivers. Bubba, the only one non-playoff. Huge to note. And we saw Win the Race tweet just that earlier this week. I love the fact that is a thing. It makes me a little bit more confident when I look at the drivers on the board. And I think that's huge in this one. We got Sean McBride saying, how you doing, Big Tino? Sean, always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Miami Mike, could be Joey. Last lap pass from 3rd for sure. Brian also saying, Eric's thrift shop is the only one I frequently visit. Amazing values. Awesome there. Now, I think it's time to go into the rapid fire or the rider fade segment there, or just going past rapid fire like we just did. Great segment there. And now let's go into rider fade, where we talk about some head-to-head matchups. Will we ride them? Will we fade them? Greg, do you have any in this one? But before or after you do so, I got to mention that Phil, Full Tank with Phil, is not with us, but he did send me over his picks. So, Greg, you start us off, and I'll be
stealing my thunder, Phil. Get out of here, Phil.
Well, everyone's getting it. We're throwing in everyone. We'll get Phil's picks. We'll get Ryan's picks. But Greg, you start us off here in this one. Eric's picks as well too.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Brian, we've talked about that, what Brian was saying about the playoff drivers and winning and, some favor, towards that. But I'm going to go against the playoff driver. And honestly, it's just because of a plus money thing, basically, right? It is incredibly hard for me. And I think I said this last time. I was Atlanta or, Daytona last time I was, here. And it's always hard for me to take any matchup at a super speedway that's not going to give me plus money, right? Because there's just so much kind of chaos going on, right? So, but 365 has given us one. Bubba plus 120 over William Byron. And so if you give me two drivers who I think all things considered are probably, right about the same. I think, Byron's probably in a little bit better equipment. I think Bubba's probably overall a little bit better super speedway driver. Give me the guy with plus money, right? If I'm looking at them in the Gen 7 overall, right? And we'll look at their average running position, Byron 1408, Bubba 1422. All right. So that's Byron's 5th overall in the series, Bubba's 6th overall in the series. They're right there. We look at their average finish. Bubba's finished a little better, 16.09, Byron 16.91. All right, again, we're kind of right there. 2024, yeah, Byron won at Daytona, the 500, but he was kind of met the past two. Bubba's got an average running position of 12.71 this year. Byron's got 16.43. All right, so just all things considered, like give me the plus money on Bubba in that. The only mark I've got against him here, well, actually, I guess I got two marks against him.
Okay,
right?
okay.
So the first mark that I got against him is that in this matchup in the Gen 7, Bubba's 4-7, right? So Byron is like, despite basically being the same guy, Byron has just ended up winning this race a lot more, this matchup a lot more. I think that's just kind of random variance, right? So that doesn't really bother me. That's not there. I guess the second mark against him is, do we think 2311 is going to be allowed to have cars that finish the race right now? Or do we think that, NASCAR is going to have somebody, up on the spotter stand with a sniper rifle taking out their tires? I think, I don't know, like Denny, last week said his head's not been in it. Obviously, I think Denny's head has been with the lawsuit that, 2311 in Front Row just filed. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that really affects Bubba. Like, Bubba doesn't care. Like, Bubba's doing his thing. He just got a new contract. Like, Bubba's like, hey, whatever, man. Like, I'm going to do my thing. Go do it.
Man just had a baby. Go off the baby vibes.
Yeah.
So
That's a sign. That's a sign.
Yeah. Although he wasted it. He had the baby before Kansas, and then they wasted it because 2311 just like forgot how to drive at, they forgot how to bring their Kansas setups. Like, whatever the hell happened to them there. But I don't think I think there are probably drivers, right, where the lawsuit is an issue. I think that's a legitimate issue for Denny. I don't think his head is in things right now. He said it, and it makes perfect sense to me. Like, his head is not in racing right now. His head is a million other places. So I think particularly when you go to Daytona, that's a problem for Denny. Anyway, circling back to the actual matchup. Yeah, give me Bubba at plus 120. I'm going to take that plus money against Byron all the time. I think that's a great one. And so that was one of the few, that I saw out there that was plus money about equal that I wanted to go ahead and lock in.
I like it. I think I can lock that one into, and I think seeing anything for plus money is huge for a race like this, because I'm looking at the board now, at least the Action Network, to find some head-to-head matchups to talk about or see ones that I have in mind, and a lot of them are even, or minus in value. And I think seeing the plus money for someone like him to get it done is huge. I'll ride that. Eric, you riding that?
I'm a Bubba lover.
Nice.
So
nice.
I'm loving. I'm like when Greg's is talking about Bubba and the love, because I know Ryan. Ryan doesn't hate Bubba, but when he goes over his statistics, well, what was it, Darlington, that I gave out like 15 or 16 to 1 for him to win the poll, and then Ryan had to just utterly text me in disgust and have to go, well, I guess you were right. And I went, that feels so good. Thank you, Ryan. Kisses. So, I love that. I love that play. I'm all about the Bubba. When it comes to plus money, I mean, on DraftKings in Canada right now, I don't know if it's different for you guys, but Chase Elliott's minus 175 over Alex Bowman. Now, I know that Chase Elliott has won here before. He runs well here. I know they're both playoff drivers, but minus 175, okay, is insane. That is the Chase love. That's a Hendrick Motorsports love in there. I wouldn't even be shocked if there's a Kyle Larson head-to-head somewhere in this universe, whether it's in Japan or, South America, wherever that has Kyle Larson minus 175 over somebody. It's probably over Zane Smith, and I would take the other side. Any sort of lines like, I mean, Austin Cindric is minus 155 over Chase Briscoe, and Chase Briscoe's plus 115. What are we doing? I mean, I get Austin Cindric's point racing. I know Chase Briscoe loves to wreck. They're both point racing, but I mean, any sort of plus money is great. You got Joey Logano minus 150 over Denny Hamlin. You know, I'm sitting there like there's a lot of value out there. And I think because Chris Wormy has told me to not bet on this race, I will bet on head-to-heads and I will take plus money. And if Chris is watching this show, once again, I am not listening. I apologize, and my bank account will probably cry by the end of this. And but one thing I do have to recommend to everybody is one of my favorite things is Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, and Bubba Wallace are my favorite drivers. And I went to Talladega and I bet on those other two guys other than Tyler Reddick, and he goes and wins the race. So there's nothing worse than watching a super speedway where anybody can win and not taking your favorite driver. So I love to just take my favorite drivers and just have fun with it and watch him finish second.
Yeah. Well, we're not finishing second this week. We're locking in some winners. I do love the insight there, though. And now we got to phone it in to Phil on the hotline. And by the hotline, I mean my text messages here as he sent over some of his plays. So what we got from Phil is going to be Austin Cindric over Daniel Saurez minus 130 on DraftKings, and his reasoning. It was a 17-spot difference on win the race. Suarez terrible so far 2024 super speedway tracks with a 33.1 average finish at Daytona and Talladega. So that's Cindric over Suarez at minus 130, which is interesting to see because of how Suarez won at Atlanta, obviously, to get into the playoffs and everything like that. But since then has not had similar success in the super speedway races. But we do know how Austin Cindric is the man when it comes to these types of tracks. One thing that Greg said, I believe it was Daytona weekend, that resonated with me was he is a one-trick pony right now, and this is his trick, right? And this is how it is for Cindric. So to me, and hearing that, I know I'm riding with it. Greg, are you riding with that? And are there any other head-to-head matchups you like in this one?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that one, right? If I'm taking the juice out of it, yeah, I'm riding it. I probably can't ride it because I can't pay the juice on that. But I will say the Sim Center over at Win the Race absolutely freaking adores this bet, right? And it loves it so much to the point that maybe it's worth taking that juice. You know, it's
you don't even like juice, okay? I've never seen you drink a juice box. All right, you will not take that bet. Get Phil's bets out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I can't do it with that because of, you know, paying the juice. But you know, it does. You know, the model says it's a good bet. The model says Cindric should be minus 185 on that. So I mean, hey,
right. I mean that's, you got to be drinking that juice. You got to be drinking
minus
that
130. That rates out as one of the best bets as the week for us. So I get it. I'm just, you know, not there myself.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's fair to say. I'm glad we were able to get Phil in the mix. One thing that I wanted to ask you about here, Eric, and this is a driver we just touched on. You mentioned him as well, but for this particular matchup I'm seeing in this head-to-head action on the Action Network is going to be Denny Hamlin plus 110 over Joey Logano, who's minus 125. To me, I understand Denny's head is not in the right place with everything we talked about, but I also can kind of see if he's going to make it be, if he's going to put all the business behind him and try to actually win a championship, this has to be the week he does it. I think I know it's a Talladega, you know, super speedway race and everything like that, but at the same time, this can prove to be a lot of momentum. We saw it with Ryan Blaney win this race, especially in the middle of a round, being able to look at a very, very pivotal round of 8 coming up after we get out of the round of 12. So Denny Hamlin plus money at a super speedway. Head could be in the right place afterwards, could be in the wrong place. Plus 110 over our most recent super speedway winner in Joey Logano, minus 125. Eric, who's hot in this one?
Who's hot? I think Joey Logano's hairline is hot. We're talking about hot boys, all right? Like this guy has not addressed it one time, all right? I mean, we know what he's doing. He went to Turkey, he took a trip in the middle of winter. I genuinely hate both of these dudes. I mean, Joey seems like a nice guy, but he smiles. It's all so fake, right? And Danny just rubs. Even the girl I'm seeing, I got her to watch. She's Irish. She don't watch none of that. She freaking plays rugby and shit or whatever. She watched it and immediately went, and she's a therapist, and she immediately started diagnosing all the issues with Denny Hamlin.
Okay,
so I hate both of these dudes. And the stat about what Dale Tanhart says about old dudes not doing well. But I would love to win money on Denny this weekend, whether it's against the other guy I hate and it's plus money. And Denny, dude, if Denny or anybody from 2311 or Front Row Motorsports goes and wins, I'm taking money. I love the juju. Okay. Plus money, Denny Hamlin, let me take it. Let him ride around the bag, do whatever he wants to do. And I would just love to win money. And then, and if he wins the whole race, to put his wiener on the table with MJ, pulls him over and slaps his on the table and goes, so what are we doing with this charter agreement? And I'd love to see them try and not, like, he's got $9 million, just tosses in his pocket. So needless to say, all I have to say, a lot of wiener talk. Welcome to my head. The plus money's great, yeah. Denny Hamlin. All that to get the Denny Hamlin plus what, 110?
Hey, whatever it takes. I love the story that came with it. We found it there. Big Ross saying, honestly, hot pass dating a rugby chick makes perfect sense. So there you go.
Typical redhead, a redhead Irish girl with an accent and the thick leg. It's great. It's great. I'm going to Ireland in November, and I heard that they make a lot of babies over there, and I hope that's not true, because we're going to have a little Hot Pass podcast baby then. I don't want to be like Chris Wormy. All right.
Hey, well, this could be the sign. Bubba Wallace, had the baby, talking babies now on the show. Never expected that. Could he
send me that? You know how women send you, like, I don't know if you guys all got ladies. Greg's got kids, and you know how they have that little ovulating little app or whatever, and they tell you when their period is and shit. The whole week I'm there, she sends me that little screenshot. She goes, just so happens. And I go, no. I said, wrap it up. They better have condoms over there, because I heard they're extra thin. We're wrapping them up double time, baby. Hot Pass Podcast.
So with that, we're going to go to the chat here. Joey Logano will start on the front row, Brian's thinking, and Denny will be in the mid-teens to start this one. I'd assume so. It seems the Fords are basically 1 through 10 anytime we get to a super speedway. And he said he would wait on the 11 versus the 22, hope for a little longer odds. I can agree with that. I think that is definitely something we can see happening in this one. I think it's a good time now to switch over to some position prompts. With that being said, I love the guys in the chat getting fired up. Keep it comments coming. If you have any questions for us, need any data from Win the Race, or want Eric to talk about any other babies happening here, put the comment down below and we'll get to it.
Yeah, because I'll talk about it. You know this. And I am going the weekend of the championship race. So I will be over there sweating bets in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Brian, so that answers your question, Brian. He will not be going during. So that's huge there for you in this one. Big Ross saying you will not see the sun for 1 second, but you'll be too drunk to care. I guess Ireland doesn't have too much sun there in this one.
They got sun. It's actually been kind of nice there. But if Chandler Smith at 25-1 wins the Xfinity Championship, or Sheldon Creed at 20-1, there will be a baby then. All right. But she better be praying for those bets. We'll be cashing big.
We'll lock that in for a clip. Clip that now, and then if it happens, well, you can show the baby. This is how you got here. The NASCAR Betting Preview Show. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had a baby this year. Shout out to him. Top 10 could be the play as we get to position props. All right, so before we get into all of ours, we got to go back to Phil on the hotline. Phil, for a top 10 position prop from Caesars, is thinking Todd Gilliland at plus 260. So much better at Dega than he is at Daytona. 4th in average finish, 9th in driver rating in the last 10 races here, which is pretty experienced for Gilliland. I would say I didn't expect him to have 10 races here. Also, strong driver rating on the super speedways all throughout this season. To me, that's the one thing that I was thinking about right off the top of my head when we're going to a super speedway, which front row car is going to start on the front row, or if not both, as we've seen that consistently happening. Can he turn it into a top 10 in this one? We'll find out. And Greg, what do you think about that top 10 bet there from Phil? Does the win the race data and analytics there back up that potential play?
Sure. We're basically not showing anything, any value anywhere on the top 10 market. The market is pretty smushed out. I like the play in terms of him getting there. I don't know that's gonna come out to implied odds of over. That's going to be somewhere around 30% implied. I don't know if I can get down to 30% implied, but I get it for, the thought process for sure. But yeah, like I said, we're basically not showing any value on anything at that price.
Yeah, and Brian agreed in the chat saying top 10s are hot garbage this week. BetMGM and Kaz Growler 3-1. That's what I'm seeing too. I mean, I wanted to go out there, find a good sneaky play, whether it was Justin Haley now in the 7 car, who's been great at super speedways throughout his career. Hey, even Corey LaJoie, a part of that trade as well. I'm only seeing at best number plus 240 to plus 250 for some of these guys. That's not really what we're used to at Talladega specifically. I mean, Daytona is still super speedway, but Talladega, when I feel like it's even more crazy, anything, the big ones, even more likely for these drivers. The best, or the highest odds rather, that I've seen would be our man BJ McLeod plus 700 for a top 10 finish in this one. I feel like at that rate, do you just hammer BJ in this one, Eric?
You just say hammer BJs? What did you just say? Like you're
I'm asking the question.
Like, you must listen to the podcast. Kind of sick brain I've got. And I've had I'm tuning in. Yeah, I've had a monster beast and a half here, and I'm feeling nice with my Tigers. I know Greg Mathern's just sweating and just, red in the face that I love my Tigers. And you're just saying about BJs. I know I love BJ McLeod. That backwards fitted hat just gets me. Oh, I love it. I love it. Such a nice guy. That's what I was looking at. I was like, at this point, give me, was it JJ Yaley driving the 44?
Yeah, let's
see.
Give me that. We got Alfredo in the mix. Yep, JJ Yaley, Cody Ware, Anthony Alfredo, all in the mix for this one.
I'm the same way, man. I feel like ever since that summer Daytona race where those guys parlayed up top 10s and Austin Dillon wins, and all those guys that always finish last end up and the guy won $1 million or whatever. Ever since then, I feel like we've lost a lot of value and they're extremely scared. I know that DraftKings, you can parlay top 10s again, which seems very ballsy. We've lost a lot of value. I feel like it's like after qualifying, sometimes it drifts out because sometimes I don't know who's making the odds. They'll let them drift out a little bit, and so you might get a little bit of value. I don't have a subscription to Win the Race. Shouts out to Win the Race. Go subscribe to.
Oh, I'm subscribed. I'm locked in there.
I know. I need a discount. Great. Remember, I have to pay more because of my my exchange rate. So it hurts the bank. We got to get on those discounts. You got a discount, Greg?
we got your first month half off. So
boom. All right, I'll subscribe. But I feel like I totally agree with Greg and I'm sure Ryan from Win the Race. We'd all say the same thing as well as Tino. That I don't see any value, man. I think it's extremely hard. I feel like in these races nowadays, it's take the plus money on head-to-heads. Top 5 on these tracks is such a such a small margin. You could have a guy in first coming off of turn 4 and he finishes like 10th or, wrecked and dead last. So I feel like in top 3, if there's a guy out there betting top 3s, man, you are an animal. And if you hit one of those, God bless you. I feel like
it's Talladega, right? Eric Almirola finished top 3 going backwards a few years ago.
Crazy, right? So I feel like a lot of the times it's take the head-to-heads, the plus money, sprinkle on whoever you feel like is going to win the race, whoever you like. We know it's a pick 'em. I do like Ross Chastain and Ricky Stenhouse at these tracks, though. When it does come to my mind when somebody mentioned Ricky in the chat, they do, but they're just super speedways. You cannot be very aggressive. Like you can be aggressive, but not too aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we saw it might have been the fall race last year. Ross Chastain was in the playoffs, so it was, and he was coming on the outside, and then Ricky ran out of fuel in front of him, and they are like stuttered, and they crashed. And Ross was running extremely well. It's shit like that where he's trying to be aggressive and get points and gone. So. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean by like, there's no, like, I can't see any value. And if you're taking minus money for a top 10 at a super speedway, I don't know what you're smoking. God bless your soul, man.
Well, I think that's exactly it. And how can we sort of find any value here? It will probably be within the outright bets and who we think could potentially win this race, who we pick to win this race and capitalize on that there. Before we get into that, though, something that could be fun, because why not have fun? It's Talladega week, right? We're all here on the show. It's a great pairing for us three, a triple threat right now. Why don't we do something fun here? You alluded to, Eric, DraftKings allowing us to parlay top 10 finishers in this one. I love doing that on any type of track, but Talladega specifically, maybe we throw in some of these guys that are plus money to do so. Why don't we all pick one driver? Could be minus money as well, but this could be the NASCAR Betting Preview Show triple threat top 10 parlay. We'll all take a driver, and I'll put them in here on the Action Network and see what odds we get. Greg, we'll start with you. This could be fun here. Who do you think for our NASCAR Betting Preview Show triple threat top 10 parlay would you take to get a top 10 in this one?
I mean, it's funny because I think most of us know my feelings on parlays. Period.
Yeah.
So let me build the parlay, right? I mean, again, I think we got to look for the correlation on, guys who do kind of ride around in the back, right? I mean, that's when it's worked, that's been the case. It's guys that have, managed to kind of hang out, survive, and not get themselves in a whole lot of trouble, right? So let's just grab basically the longest the longest that we can get, right? Let's see who we got. I'm pulling it to take the look at what DraftKings, since DraftKings is the only place that's going to let us do it.
The fact that BJ McLeod is plus 800 on Bet365, but plus 360 on DraftKings is insane.
Well, and that goes to it, right? Is I would mess with that if we could get that on 365, right? But all right, give me Zane, give me BJ, and give me SVG.
I thought we were picking one piece at a time.
We are picking one. I like the Zane Smith.
You took Zane from me. How dare you?
I got worked up and I went through it all.
I love it there. I'll take Zane Smith. I like that one.
No. I wanted.
You wanted Zane Smith, so then we'll just.
I wanted just to prove Ryan wrong that Zane Smith can get a top 10. That's the only reason. But you can have him. I'll choose somebody else. I do have somebody else.
All right. So I got DJ. All right, you got Zane.
All right.
And I will
I'm going Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Oh, now you're changing because I pressured you. It's okay. I have hand tattoos, but you don't have to be scared.
He's going Zane Smith. I'm going Ricky. Who are you going?
No, I'm saying I'm taking BJ as my first.
You're going BJ?
I'm going BJ as my first one.
BJ? I'm going Ricky. I was never on any of those three. I'll take them into the parlay, but those were never. Ricky was always my guy. So, okay. So now who are you going with here?
So I got all aggressive about Zane, but I was also humming and I talked shit about John Hunter Nemechek earlier on in the stream. I got to go Zane Smith. I got to prove Ryan wrong that he can get a top 10 and he can match Kyle Larson's amount of top 10s. We're going Zane Smith. I love to see it. And I just want to rub it in Ryan's face.
Okay. So that's
Dude,
Zane
so
Smith, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and BJ McLeod, of course. Let's see what the bet slip's saying for us odds-wise, if we can parlay this here. I was trying to do it on the Action Network. I'll have to go to DraftKings specifically. While I do that, we'll circle back to it because it's going to take me a couple seconds to do that. It's time for the moment everyone's been waiting for.
It won't let us do it at all. I just looked. It won't.
Yeah,
really?
It took it away.
They took it back away. Wow.
Well, I'm glad we did that potential exercise to have a little fun, and DraftKings doesn't want us to have fun this week. So everyone who's tuning in, now we know we can't do that, which every week we can. So I'm a little disappointed.
It's been every week, including at super speedways. Like
you know what I mean? They're scared. They're scared. Somebody won money again. Was it you, Greg?
No, I think who did? Somebody did. Maybe it was Giffen. Maybe Nick Giffen won some money. I think over at Action.
Got me blocked on Twitter.
Well, that's tough, but I hope you guys enjoyed our little exercise there. Maybe we'll have to bring that back when they do let us eventually. But all right, now it's game time. Now we're locked in. We talked about how there wasn't value some places. I think we can find some value for some outright winners here. Craig, win the race. You guys over there, you got the stats, you got the data. We've been talking about playoff drivers stepping up in this playoff Talladega race. Who do you guys have in this one?
Okay, so I'm going to cheat. All right.
Okay.
Because it's more fun this way for me. All right. My outright's Ford. Because you can get him at plus 145 over at 365. So I'm going to take Ford at that. And I of course, I have the numbers to back me up, right? Okay.
Sweet.
So if we look at Fords, if we look at the top 10 in average running position this year, we've got 5 of the top 10 are Fords. Cindric's 1, Logano's 3, Todd Gilliland's 5, Brad Keselowski 6, Chris Buescher 7. All right. If we expand out to the top 17, 10 of the top 17 in average running position are Fords. All right. So then we get McDowell at 12, McDowell at 11, Barry at 12, Blaney at 14. Right. Top 3 in laps led, all Fords. McDowell at 99 laps, McDowell at 67 laps, Cindric at 42. The next is Busch and Haley, who are tied at 25. Now, all right, we're going to temper some of that McDowell, right? Because that's him leading from the pole.
Yep.
And we're going to temper a little bit of Logano. That's him up at the pole too. All right. But they're still up there, right? They're still up there in the average running. I mean, McDowell's not up there in their average running position, but Logano's still up there in the average running position. So he's led and he's stayed there. All right. So you give me all of that as a whole, and then you throw in going back to our playoff drivers things. All right. So we had a whole bunch of playoff drivers in that pool, right? Who have the potential to win, who at this has been that. Give me that. Absolutely. I will,
including 3 Team Penske guys too. I think that point.
Penske guys. Yep. 100%. So give me the Ford camp at plus 145. The Sim Center absolutely adores the bet. So
all right. You know, you did cheat, but I will accept it there because of all the stats to back it up. To recap, Greg's gonna be taking Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. No, I'm just kidding. But all the Ford drivers. That'd be funny if you let it like that. But no, yeah, I think to me, Ford is the way to go. With the major thing that comes out that stood out to me when you were describing that was those Team Penske guys, right? Ryan Blaney, I believe he's the only driver this season, I could be wrong, that has a top 10 in all the super speedway races this season. I know he had an awesome streak going from Atlanta all the way down to here. He's got there. Kyle Busch was another one that was up there as well in that same point. But Eric, who are you thinking in this one? Are you going sort of the same route of a Ford driver, or are you finding higher value in this one for an outright winner?
Well, since Greg took all of the Fords, I will try and hop over to my my Bubba Love. Okay. The babies. Okay. He had a nice baby, beautiful child. Now, Greg, you said he had it before Kansas.
He had it before Kansas.
He was distracted. Okay. And now that he's let it out in the world, now the juju's out there. Okay. He held back the juju.
I like it.
Okay. And he's 24-1 on FanDuel, which I think is outrageous. Obviously we know he won here. And I love it when he does win because all the haters shut up for at least a week till the next race. He is not points racing. He knows when to be aggressive. He knows when to just chill. Now, he's not like Denny Hamlin and just like immediately I'm exiting the world and going to the back when I feel something. But he just knows how to get up to the front, man. I love coming to these tracks. I do get a little heated because as a big Bubba fan, getting called crazy shit at races. We're not going to get into it. But every time we go here, I'm like, 1.5 miles and super speedways is where he can succeed, I think, at the most. And 24-1, if I'm going to take a guy where I really don't want to bet on this race and I'm going to bet on one of my favorite drivers and to shut all the haters up, give me 24-1 on my dog, Bubba Wallace. Does anybody know what he's driving this week? Have they said anything by Wednesday?
In terms of paint scheme?
Paint scheme, yeah. I mean, obviously he's not driving a Ford because Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I know. That was a good one.
I gotta pull the entry. Let me pull the entry list real quick.
Because whatever he's driving, it better not be that Lados car because every time he drives that Lados car or whatever it is,
dude, that car is garbage for him.
I'm with you. I'm with you guys with that. The paint schemes matter in terms of who wins a race. Like
I thought my brother and I were the only ones that thought that. We're always going, "Oh my god,
we got a good one."
I mean, I joke about it a little bit, but like,
isn't that last week? Oh no, that is this week. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's this week.
Air Force. Fly with Air Force.
Oh, buddy.
Like that.
All right.
Okay.
Bubba Wallace, 2 units. No, I'm just kidding. But like a sprinkle on Bubba Wallace to win with a U.S. Air Force. God bless America as a Canadian. Give me America. Give me Bubba Wallace. And if I say all this stuff to hype up America, y'all better be on it, okay? No disrespect to Bubba.
Yeah, but Bubba Wallace, I'm looking at the entry list right now. Yeah, the sponsor is U.S. Air Force. So
USA.
Nice.
Martha.
Nice.
America, brother.
No, I'm definitely with betting on paint schemes. I think to stick with that, one that I just saw that I haven't seen, which I'm sure it has ran since this particular race I'm going to mention, but I haven't seen it, is going to be from Kyle Busch. And it's going to be the last or one of the last races he won with the Lucas Oil car at Auto Club. I think that is a strong. Yeah. Kyle Busch 14-1 on BetMGM running that paint scheme. And think about how he just lost last week at Kansas.
Oh yeah, you think I don't know?
Yeah, my bad.
25-1. Are you serious right now, bro?
So exactly. So now you're in on Kyle Busch winning this one too. So
I'm in.
I think that if I had to pick, aside from Bubba, because I do love the Bubba play, if there's going to be any 2 drivers that I would play that are not in the playoffs to win this one, it's Bubba Wallace, it's Kyle Busch, because they have, at these super speedways too, they've been so strong, and I feel like they've been close to winning at times this season, haven't gotten it done. This would be the chance to do so. And now I got to go. Last hotline play from Phil, Chase Elliott, 18-1 he's opening up at, which is, to me, is awesome value. That is on Bet365. And then Phil's reasoning was he's a sneaky threat on this track. I like the number here longer than other books. Wouldn't be shocked if he won it all. Wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, he's a winner at Talladega. I think in terms of the Chevys, he would be the guy that would be running up front. To go along with that, though, another driver I was thinking was William Byron. 16-1 on Bet Rivers, 14-1 on BetMGM. I'll even take the 14-1 because of the speed they showed at Kansas. I know not a comparable track at all, but just the fact that they actually kind of showed up for a week. I haven't seen Willie B in the second half of the season be up front leading laps. I think that's a good positive confidence boost, a little momentum for them heading into a place where they can win at Talladega. William Byron, 14-1 would be another one of my plays heading into this one.
everybody over Hendrick Motorsports. When Ross Chastain beats William Byron by 1 spot and wins the race, there is nothing better than beating Rick Hendrick after he talked shit about my boy at Darlington. So everybody over, Willie B's good. All right. Chase Elliott. I don't think he was actually snowboarding. I think he was snowboarding a different kind of snowing, So, I heard some rumors. Okay. So everybody over Hendrick. It seems like Chase likes to have fun in the ski slopes in downtown Charlotte. Everybody over Hendrick Motorsports. But I love the numbers. Chase Elliott 18
I don't think Elliott would have the first clue where to find that kind of snow, my man.
You find it in church on Sundays in Charlotte. Well, you wonder why he flies planes. He's shipping it across. That's not what I heard. All right.
All right. Well, if that ever gets found out, we'll know who ratted him out for that one. As we begin to close out the show here, I'll give a couple more plays out, maybe some best values if we could find them, or any other things we would like to mention, Xfinity trucks or anything like that. Everyone in the chat, if you have any last questions or comments, feel free to get them in now. Also be sure to let us know who you think is going to win the race. We love hearing from you guys, any of the plays like you guys been saying. Brian mentioned Bubba, but I want to go back to TK here. And this question I have for Greg as well, because he was curious if the other teams will adapt to the Toyota strategy, which despite the crash did ultimately lead to a win early in the year, and it would have at Talladega. Greg, what do you think about the strategy heading into this race? How is that going to play out?
I think Toyota's in a unique spot. Right. I talked about this a little bit last week when I was talking to Eric Estep about Toyota at Kansas. Right. So Toyota has like just a number of cars. Right. There's so many fewer Toyotas in the field than the other guys. So they've got to adapt some of these strategies and take some of this weirdness on. You look at the number of starts they have. I mean, they've got a third. They just don't have the cars, and so they got to do some of this kind of weirder stuff to get there. Certainly some of their cars have the speed, but just like it's harder to link up, harder to find a group. So I think they have to do more of that to force themselves into that group. I don't know that you necessarily see that with the other guys, because it's so much easier if I'm in a field of 40 cars, right? And 8 of them are Toyotas. And then, so that leaves us, 32. All right. Well, 16 of basically the cars are going to be a Toyota or a Chevy. It's so much easier for me to find a Ford or a Chevy. It's so much easier for me to find another Ford or a Chevy to link up with and do that. So I think Toyota does that, and it works for them. Sure. If they had not, just wrecked themselves all out, it would have
but they needed that strategy, to your point, because it's not like everyone was racing all together in fast.
Because again, it's just so much harder to find each other. So if you do that, you're like, okay, hey, now we're all together. Now we know where we are, and we don't have to worry about like, oh, am I going to be able to find somebody else in my camp to give me a hand, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know that you see it as much with the other guys. I think they're more likely to just kind of do their thing and realize like, hey, there's going to be somebody in my camp. Again, when you do see it is when you go to the duels back at Daytona for the qualifying. You see it at the duels because there's less cars out on the track. And so it's harder to find somebody. And so you do get more of that. I mean, like, yes, obviously you get, manufacturers trying to pit together and, do that stuff together. Like that absolutely happens. It's absolutely a part of it. But I think you see it more with Toyota because of those fewer cars. I think it's a more like forced thing. It's like, hey, we're just going to go completely off from everybody else and do our own thing. And I don't think you'll see that as much with anybody else. If you did, you'd see it with something more like a team that's got an alliance. So, all right, maybe you see, but I don't even know if they have enough cars to do it. I was going to say, maybe you see like RFK and Front Row try it, but it's still only going to be 4 cars. You're not going to have enough cars to do it.
Yeah.
And then you have the Rex too. Yeah, I mean, like if you had another open car for one of those teams, right? And so you had, and even that, if you had like 6 cars for like a team, if you could find like 2 teams that like would total up to 6, so like maybe Penske's not going to do it with anybody. Penske's going to do it for himself. But I could see it in a situation like that where you might get like like two teams that decide they're going to try and do it together. But I don't think you're going to see it like they'll obviously be from the same manufacturer, but you're not going to see it manufacturer wide the way you do it.
Maybe like a Stuart Haas and a front row. I don't know. I could kind of because maybe everyone from there works together to push Chase Briscoe to the lead or something like that.
Yeah, that I could see because there you got yourself 6 cars. I could see something. I could see something like that.
Okay. Good to know there. I could agree with that in terms of how these teams and guys are going to work together because that's going to be the biggest thing, I think. And I think that's what worked out for Blaney last year, right? It was him and Harvick, and then he made the nice move to ultimately secure the win against him, running down the backstretch and passing him. One question I wanted to ask you both here, because I do feel like, and if you feel differently, let me know. The best team in terms of coming to Dega to win, I feel like is Team Penske right now. With Joey Logano winning at Atlanta, with Ryan Blaney winning, I believe he has 3 super speedway wins in the last 4 years, or maybe 4 to 5. So he's won a bunch of times on super speedways, especially at Talladega, like we've seen. And then Austin Cindric being the one-trick pony and this being his trick. For you guys, if you had to pick one of those drivers, if you do agree that Team Penske is the strongest when we go here, if you had to pick one of those drivers to win this week from Blaney, Logano, or Cindric, Eric, we'll start with you. Which one of those would you take in this one?
Man, I was gonna say RFK is better, but
Okay.
I don't know what the hell happened in Atlanta. Like just
and now out of the playoffs too, kind of concerns me.
Yeah, and then I mean, you think that Brad would have showed up a little bit, Chris Buescher would have showed up. I mean, they both did ride right next to each other like they always freaking do, but they never really showed up at all. So I would have said RFK, but Atlanta kind of scared me, and then Joey Logano goes and wins. So I think you have to say Penske. Man, I don't know. I think I would probably have to say Ryan Blaney, man. This guy has won here how many times? Like he's won a couple of times, whether it's in the Gen 7 and Gen 6, but I mean, I love Ryan.
So Blaney. He's won once in the Gen 7. Most of it's the Gen 6.
Yeah.
Here's the fun fact about the Gen 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have no multiple winners at Talladega and Daytona in the Gen 7. We have 11 different winners at Talladega and Daytona. Now, when you throw in Atlanta, that's where you start getting the multiples, because then you got William Byron and you got Joey Logano, right? But at Talladega and Daytona, we have 11 different winners. Harrison Burton, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, Stenhouse, Chastain, Byron, Elliott, Buescher, Blaney, Busch. There's your 11.
Wow.
No one's won twice.
Wow. I like that.
And that's great. So anybody
does it continue?
Dude, Gen 7, it just keeps coming back to Bubba Wallace. That's all I have to say. Gen 7. Gen 7 Bubba. Okay.
And there is also I remember thinking about this heavily. That when the race put it out, it was a crazy stat where like in 19, and this was at the time of the last Talladega race, 19 of the last like 22 or something races, or maybe I'm off of my stat there, but I know it was the person who started inside the top 19 has won like the last 20 times in these races. So I know qualifying doesn't matter, but it's been the top 19. Greg, do you know that stat I'm talking about there?
I don't remember the exact stat, but I do know what I was pointing out to people. Qualifying is irrelevant. So looking at the Gen 7, right? So we've had the 11 races there. The correlation coefficient, right, between starting position and finishing position. So if it was 1, it would mean there's perfect correlation. Like your starting position, you started where you finished, or you finished where you started, right? If it was 1, you would start where you would finish where you start. If it was -1, it would be the inverse. It's like if you started 1, you would end 40. All right. So over those 11 races, we have how many different data points do we have on that? So like this is not like, this is to the point that it's very statistically significant. All right, we got 427 426 data points in this set. Correlation coefficient 0.065.
Oh, jeez.
Basically nothing.
Yeah.
Basically nothing. When I look at the trend chart, it's like the slightest upward trend. So like, just like the slightest tinge, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like the scatter chart is just everywhere. So yeah, starting position's irrelevant.
Are you betting your life savings on Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell, either one of them to win the poll? Or is it going to open up at 20-1 and get shot down to 3-1 again in like 2 seconds?
Well, if it opens at 20-1, I'll empty my bank account on it. I should, if you think it's going to open 20-1, let me go open a HELOC right now. Like, all right,
well, didn't you say at Atlanta, like for just
no, he did at Atlanta,
5 minutes?
Yeah, it was absolutely, or not Atlanta. Yeah, at Atlanta. It
was Atlanta. I remember you tweeting out like, "Oh my god, it got nuked."
I didn't even track it because I didn't feel right tracking that one. I was like, well, that was gone instantly. Yeah, I mean, if McDowell opens at 20,
dude,
I will unload whatever is in whatever account that I have on it to that. I think McDowell will be in good shape. But again, maybe NASCAR.
Dude, they were flying to the moon, baby. That's how fast they were going.
NASCAR is going to call NASA to get like a space laser to, blow up Michael McDowell's car, right? So maybe Logano's the guy. But yeah, if you give me 20 on McDowell, I would unload on it. We'll have to see on that one for sure.
All right. Any other best values you guys got out there? I feel like this segment is a little harder because of the fact that we haven't seen like the specific segment would be from, a nice top 5 player, a top 3 or a top 10, or even a winner that was, closing line value. That stuff we're just not really seeing at Talladega, that, like we mentioned earlier on in the show. So if you wanted to open up now, we could talk about any Xfinity plays, truck, if you guys have any of those.
I do have one for you. I do have.
Okay, hey, for sure. Right. Let's hear it.
In there, Greg.
And it's a guy we've talked about.
Okay,
and it's a guy that we've talked about liking. And over at MGM, you can get Kyle Busch for a top 3 at plus 450.
Oh yeah,
and freaking book
it, brother.
Book it. All right,
I like that.
Again, you know I'm going to have the stats on it. All right. Kyle Busch, he's 3 of 11 top 10 in the Gen 7. He has the best average running position in the Cup Series by half a position in the Gen 7. His average running position is 12.61. Next best is Chase Elliott at 13.16. All right. In 2024, he continues to have the best average running position. It's down to 10.3 this year. This year, he has 65% of his laps at the super speedways in the top 10. And you're going to give me 450 for him to finish top 3. I don't necessarily want to grab him to win because I do think that a playoff driver wins this race, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to tell me you're going to give me 4.5 to 1 on him to finish in the top 3, I think that's very achievable, very doable. Absolutely. Sign me up.
I love it. I like that a lot, especially for a guy like Kyle Busch. We talked about being strong, and we also talked about not being able to finish a job this season, but we can make money with him coming inside the top 3, and like you said, and it still potentially capitalize on that playoff driver winning with Kyle Busch in 3rd. Love that. Eric, who do you think in this one for any best values? And also, what do you think about that Kyle Busch play too? I love that.
Well, because we know Kyle Busch is like a Sheldon Creed at this point and will break your heart. So you take him top 3 every week. One of my favorites. So I'll give you a little sneak peek of like my truck bets from the Hot Pass podcast. And then there's one guy for the that I will talk about more in depth on Friday morning for the NASCAR Betting Preview Show, the Xfinity Betting Show. 2 guys, the truck odds opened. dude. Okay, I'll give you 3. Okay, and they're just sprinkles. Pop a little $5-10 on it. I like Brett Holmes. I'm sure you'll be able to get maybe a better line on Brett Holmes, but he's 35-1. I'm not a big statistics guy. I feel off juju. And Brett Holmes, Loki, very good at super speedways. 35-1. And there's a reason why he's 35-1 is because they figured out that he's good. He used to be 60 to like 80 to 100-1. And now they've nuked him down to 35-1. I'll still take a little sprinkle. Another guy that got I think it was a top 5 finish at Daytona earlier this year. And Daytona and Talladega are different. I get it. But Spencer Boyd to win. I want longer top 5 numbers right now, so I'm waiting for Bet365. Shouts out to Bet365 for having always great lines. Shouts out to Ryan not being able to get it. And 150-1 for Spencer Boyd to win the race, and Lawless Allen as well. Just give me $10 on that. We'll just have some fun. I don't want to spend too much. And then Xfinity, give me my boy that finished second here in the spring, and that we're coming back, and he's going to get a do-over because we always don't have if I'm right, Xfinity doesn't always come back here in the fall. Riley Herbst, 18-1, my dog. And we already know that 2311 deal is coming out. We're just waiting for all this charter shit to come out. Give me Riley Herbst. Proved them all wrong. It's obviously not a correlating track, but at Indy that same week, everybody's talking shit.
Yeah.
He's gotten a little quiet. I know he needs to point his way through. And if we're talking about the Cup Series and the stats with playoff drivers, I got to fade Junior Motorsports because they all catch into each other. Who's good at super speedways? Greg Hyde, all the Fords in the Cup Series. Give me a Ford in Xfinity, and I'll steal all the Fords in Xfinity, baby. Give it to me. Riley Herbst, my dog. Terrible gas stations. A hangar at they got a hangar at Las Vegas airport. So shouts out to Riley Herbst and the Herbst family. Give me all the money. Let me cash a bag. Because he guaranteed me a win on the Boulevard at Talladega in the spring, and the man finished second and ditched Haley Deegan. Not cool, bro. Cash me a bag this time, please.
Okay. The redemption for Riley. If we're giving out Xfinity plays, one that I have to mention. Parker Kligerman, 14-1, the walk-off, finally gets a win in his what is now his last season racing full time.
Ditch AJ Allmendinger on turn 1 on the final lap again and then crash everybody. Shouts out Parker. Oh my God, I had AJ Allmendinger.
Yeah. And AJ too is always very strong here, despite after finishing within the top 3, gets out of the car, says he does not like it racing on the super speedways. But I feel like that'll do it. One play I also like would be for a sneaky like Christopher Bell, top Toyota or something like that on Sunday. I feel like he is a driver that is always, when I look at these super speedway races, always up there, like managing his car, one of the best that I've seen in terms of avoiding the wrecks and being able to race up front for the victory at the end of these, unpredictable, predictable type of super speedway tracks. Greg, anything else that you guys got over there as we close out the show here now?
Nah, I'm empty now. As much as I do love betting on these races, this week has been a little bit of a struggle bus to find anything. Not been a ton that I like out there. I got 3.5 units on the race at this point, and that's low for me. I'm normally significantly heavier on this, and honestly, the crazy part about it, the longest one of those is 10-1 for Larson to be top Chevy. So
I saw that during this. I got a notification from your Action Network.
Yeah.
Action Network.
So it's kind of crazy. Like that's not, it's not kind of been my MO on these. I've been longer ones on these. So it's an interesting week. We'll look and see what happens. Qualifying doesn't matter. So maybe, books will forget that qualifying doesn't matter. Somebody will qualify like shit and we'll get a number. You never know. Or, maybe somebody will open up tomorrow and give us 20-1 on Michael McDowell to win the pole. And, I'll go bet so much money that I can retire and be done.
Love it. Love it. Well, appreciate you hopping on. And this has been such a fun show with you guys. We went 120 here, which I didn't expect to do for a Talladega race, super speedway race, but it was worth it with all the picks we gave out to the people. And guys in the chat, appreciate everyone commenting below. Greg, to that point there, where can everyone find you and win the race and everything that you guys have to offer this weekend?
So yeah, wintherace.info. We've got our daily fantasy stuff. We've got our sim center, which runs 10,000 simulations of the race, gives us fair market odds on stuff. We've got in the Discord, we've got a bot that works with it, so you can like query specific things. So like if you have something that doesn't necessarily automatically query into it, I can say like, hey, give me this specific matchup, give me this specific group, I can run that. It's great stuff. And then I'm on Twitter gmathern84, and that's where we're at.
Awesome. Now, he was the man that had all energy all night, bringing the heat from the Hot Pass podcast. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate you. We got to have you back again, whether it's not this season or the next, just very soon, because I love your energy and the positive vibes each and every week. Where can people find you and follow along with everything you're doing this weekend and throughout the season?
Well, you can follow this nutbag at Furlong Eric _, on everything, whether it's X, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm a young buck, so I'll do a couple of TikToks every once in a while.
The tiki-takis.
Yeah, the tiki-takis, baby. You can see me. I have a extensive, very rare vintage NASCAR all-over print tee collection. So if you guys ever want to see that, I do some fits or whatever, big into Jordans and stuff. And I've got a hookup with Beast Unleashed and the Monster guys. So if you ever want to see what the scoop is when I'm at a track, it's always a damn good time. Drinking on the Monster bus is wild times. And then the Hot Pass podcast is available Tuesday and Friday mornings. Every Tuesday and Friday, I do a Friday morning betting show, Truck, Xfinity, and Cup. I just had Chris Wormy on last week, and yeah, I mean, I love having a good time. I got crazy energy, wild, and it's just me usually. So you guys saw me on here. You know that I have a crazy brain. And if you just love just raunchy, just wildness, like I'll talk about Trump getting shot in the ear. I don't give a shit. We'll talk about it all. I love a good conspiracy theory. So comment on my videos, Hot Pass Podcast on YouTube, Hot Pass Podcast, wherever you get your audio podcasts. And then I also do the NASCAR Betting Preview Show, Xfinity Betting Show. I appreciate you guys having me on here. It was a lot of fun. I bring a lot of energy. I know Ryan I love Ryan. So we'll hate on Ryan. Okay. I love Ryan. I would give him a hug. He looks like a big old bear. Okay. I'd give the same thing to Greg. And then I would also probably give each kiss to Tino's eyebrows, because those things are solid. Yeah, like I love those things. I tune in every week just to see those suckers.
You commented that one week, and I was like,
yeah, I love him. I love him. But like Ryan he's sometimes he can be a negative Nancy. So it's nice to switch it up every once in a while and get some fun in here. So I hope Ryan watches this with his strep throat. Maybe he can't type because he's got strep throat. I don't think that's how that works.
Hey, I didn't see him in the chat like he said he was going to be.
Yeah,
so
he's a liar. He's cuddled up with his kids and his wife. He's got man sickness right now. He's a big baby right now. But I appreciate you guys having me on. I would definitely come back on anytime soon.
Yes, sir. I love it. I appreciate everything. Appreciate the eyebrow compliment there as well. But you guys can find me at Tino, PATTIGNO, across social media. I'll be updating the betting card. But mostly everything we talked about on the show will be what I'll be placing down. You can hear me on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio as I break down my best bets throughout each and every week. We also got Front Stretch Through the Gears is my own NASCAR betting preview show there. So from that standpoint and that show, so we can look at me over there and everything like that. Some articles as well as, the Detroit Tigers won a playoff series. We hope to win a playoff race at Talladega, and appreciate everyone doing. Oh, and there
I didn't realize he's an Astros fan.
The perfect.
Oh my God! It feels so much better. He was hiding it. Oh, this is the best.
7 straight ALCS appearances. It's over. It's sad, but we've been dominant. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't.
Where's my trash can? Where's my trash can?
Oh,
I'd be lying.
At the very last minute, it breaks out.
See it end, but we've been crushing it, so it's okay. It's been a good decade.
I
It's
love
got to
it.
come to an end.
Well, the Astros had to come to an end, and so does this show here tonight. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. Appreciate everyone, and we'll see you next week here on the NASCAR Betting Preview Show.